BeastNet is brought to you by James Safety Services in partnership with OCR Buddy and OCR Strong. Here we discuss all things OCR and fitness related. Welcome to BeastNet.
Hey everybody, it's Mike with BeastNet here, and on today's episode, I got with me Tim Wilkinson. Tim, let everyone know a little bit about who you are.
My name's Tim Wilkinson. I'm 51 years old. A major hobby of mine is doing ultra endurance triathlons.
Now that sounds interesting. So ultra endurance triathlons. Now, what do you mean by that? I mean, I know triathlons. I mean, sprints, Olympic. You know, you've got your 70.3, your 140.6, or whatever it is. What do you mean by endurance?
It's the distance longer than Ironman, which is the 140.6. There's double anvil triathlons, and that's the distance equivalent of doing 2 Ironmans. So you do all the swim, then all the bike, all the run, and the gun goes off. You go until you cross the finish line, and that's you have a 36-hour time limit. And there's also Ultraman, which is a 3-day event. Day 1, you swim 10 kilometers, then you bike 145 kilometers. And day 2, you bike 275 kilometers. And then day 3, you run 2 marathons, 84.4 kilometers, 52.4 miles. And each day on the Ultraman, you have a 12-hour time limit to get the day done. And if you exceed the 12 hours, your race is over, and that's it.
I mean, I'm just thinking the third day, you're already destroyed, and you got to run 2 marathons in under 6 hours apiece.
Correct. Yes, I've done 2 Ultramans. I did Ultraman Canada in July of 2019. And I qualified for the World Championships in November of the same year in Hawaii.
Now, those ones seem, I mean, I'm having problems even getting up to a 70.3, but, but I just started, I mean, this is only my second year even doing triathlons. I've done OCRs, I've done all that stuff, and it just it sounds bad to say it, but I got kind of bored. Kind of the reason I started doing OCRs is I got bored with regular running. And then it's like, so I started doing OCRs with all the obstacles. And then after a while, I'm like, okay, this is kind of fun. What's next? Yeah. And that's when I went to the doing the triathlons. And for me, I'm not a good swimmer. That's my biggest struggle. And I hear that from a lot of people. I think that's why a lot of people don't jump to triathlons, is because of the swimming.
Correct.
I know a lot of people end up doing the duathlons, which I'm like, if you're going to do it, just do it. So go for the triathlons. But I couldn't even imagine. Like I said, the 70.3 is the hurdle that I'm at right now. I've DNF'd 2 back-to-back 70.3s. Both of them in the same. There's a lake that's pretty much become my nemesis. The only 3 triathlons I've ever DNF'd in my life have all been in the same lake.
Yeah.
So it's become my nemesis. But
yes.
Both the 70.3, it's been the bike. The swim I did okay. It ended up being the bike. The first year, it was because I borrowed a bike and I wasn't used to it. So I just couldn't get it up to the speed I needed to be and I hadn't trained enough on that bike.
Yeah.
And then this year I bit it on the bike. And when I did, I bent the back brake pad and I didn't realize it. And I didn't realize I was dragging the brake.
Holy cow.
For like 30 miles. So I came in 6 minutes too late because I was dragging that brake. I lost. If I hadn't stopped, I stopped like 3 times to try and fix, because I knew something wasn't right. You've ridden a bike enough, obviously, that when you ride your bike and something's not right. And correct. I knew it wasn't. I just couldn't figure out what it was. The whole time. It wasn't until I got home and I put it up on the, lifted it because it hangs in the garage. And when I started pulling it up, I grabbed the back tire and kind of spun, and it didn't even do a quarter turn. and it
Holy,
sucked. I'm like, oh, and I'm like, it's got to do better. They're brand new. That was the first time those rims and tires had been used.
well,
So I'm
that
like,
hurts.
yeah,
Hurts more than one way.
yes, it did. It did. My legs. By the time I finished, I couldn't even clip my legs in
Yeah,
because if I clipped my feet in, I couldn't. My legs were so smoked. I couldn't like unclip quick enough.
yeah,
So I had to like flip them over because I have the pedals where I could flip it over and just pedal normally. And I just
yeah,
flipped them over into normal pedals for like the last probably 6 miles because I'm just my legs. I knew I couldn't, they were just so tired I couldn't pop them out. And I mean, that was just a 70.3. So I couldn't imagine doing the numbers you're talking about.
well, just like everything, you build up to it. You spoke of the swimming. Prior to my first race, I hadn't even done any swimming up to that point. The only swimming I did was at the local swimming hole, and you just go there to hang
Mhm.
out and buddies and look at girls. But then you just start swimming, and then gradually pick it up and learn how to do it. Theoretically, that is.
Theoretically, it's like I tell a lot of people when I first, because I my very first sprint I did, I was destroyed, and I mean I was just doing a sprint, which is what 500 meters in the
Mhm.
water, and I was wrecked. And it's like I afterwards, but of course I did that and then signed up for an Ironman right after the half iron because I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And immediately asked my friends, I'm like, who wants to teach me how to swim? And
Mhm.
everyone's like, you just did a triathlon. I'm like, I didn't drown, I didn't swim. you know and I figured out there's a huge difference between not drowning and swimming. They're
Yeah.
two completely different things, and that's what I did in that first one. I just didn't drown,
Yes.
but swimming was not what I was doing.
Yeah. Well, in my first 70.3, um, there's weeds. The last probably 500 meters of the swim, there's weeds, and your face is in the water looking down. And I'd say, just like most people you see weeds, you kind of have a little freak out
Mhm.
inside. And then the freak out gets a little louder when you start touching weeds.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's something about being touched by something underwater that gets us, you
Yeah.
know and that's the hardest part for me because I have asthma. So if my breathing starts to go bad, I start having issues. And that's where the first time I DNF'd to an Olympic was because of asthma. I had a swimmer come up, the Olympic swimmers went first and then the sprints went after us. And I didn't make the turn before the sprint elite went.
Yeah.
So as I was coming around the turn and they were doing the same turn, they pretty much swam right over me.
Yeah.
And I sucked in water. Once my breathing was gone, it was gone. And that's why I had problems that one. But on the last one I did, I started having breathing issues and I actually made the choice of I swam over to a kayak and just grabbed it for like 30 seconds, just enough. Like I need to get my breathing under control now, because if I don't, I'm not going to be able to do this. And so I
Yeah.
stopped for that 30, 45 seconds, calmed my breathing down. And then all of a sudden you could see it even on on my Garmin, my pace suddenly just jumped.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well,
it's all mental, a lot of it.
absolutely, it is. Absolutely. And that's as the distances grow, it it just grows.
Yeah. Oh,
It
and I could see that. I mean, so when did you start doing triathlons? How long have you been doing it?
about 18 years.
Okay. So I have
I
another 10 or so years to build up to those big ones. Oh.
Well, it's only in the last what is it, 2022, last 3 years that I've done the ultra endurance races. I'd done lots of 70.3s, did 2 Ironmans, and when I crossed the finish line, both Ironmans, I raced hard, but I still felt like I had a lot in the tank that I could have kept on going.
Wow.
And I saw what piqued my interest in Ultraman was when I first saw the Ultraman logo at a race. And I didn't know what it was, but I remembered it. And then after the race, I went home and Googled it and found out the distances, and started thinking seriously about it. And I just couldn't let it go. So I started training for it, and went into Ultraman Canada, and it's you sign up, but you don't, you have to qualify for Ultraman.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just take my entry fee. You have to qualify. You have to finish an Ironman, and then they check. Basically, you do a resume to qualify, and then it's limited to 40 racers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I was first inquiring about it, like Ironman, there's 2,500 plus racers. So I'm thinking, okay, how many Ultraman racers are there? I had no idea. And then when I found out that it's capped at 40, I go, wow. I had absolutely no clue. And then I got an email a couple days later that that I qualified. I met their requirements and started training seriously. And I ended up getting 7th overall at Ultraman Canada. And as I said, qualified for the World Championships in Hawaii.
Which, I mean, it's one of those things, just to be able to finish it is amazing.
Absolutely. Finishing it, that's the first goal. Placings is never, no matter the distance, it's never on my mind. If I end up getting a decent placing, my power's blinking here. We got about 8 inches of snow here. So it's never on my mind to get a high placing. It's the goal is to finish the distance.
Yeah. Which, I mean, for me right now, that's how I've been. I mean, like I said, this is only my second year doing any, the very first triathlon I did was a sprint last July. So it's only, been a year and a couple months since I did my first one. So I'm still kind of getting into it, getting used to it. That it's definitely a different sport.
Yeah.
And the training's different. Like my biggest mistake this year is I did a lot of, I ran, I rode my bike, and I swam.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't do anything really else.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest one. Talking to a lot of coaches, they're like, yeah, that's your mistake. You still need to lift. You still need to do all this. You need strength training as well to, besides just the endurance, to like make sure you can handle all that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. So,
well, it's funny you should say that, because all of my training leading up to and including Ironman, I just did the swim, bike, run training. I didn't lift any weights.
yeah.
I didn't coach. And the goal was to get the distance of each discipline in, knowing that I can cover it in a race.
Yeah. And that's my thing. I need to get it. I know I can do the Olympic. I've finished multiple Olympics now in sprints. For me, it's been the 70.3, but it's one of those, I know physically I can do it.
Yeah.
I've just had bad, I've made mistakes. Like like I said, I bid it on the Ironman this year. It was my own fault. I have my clips, like I said, for the pedals, but the pedals, when I got my bike, I got a specialized delay that my father-in-law found at a garage sale for $10.
Oh, wow.
So I'm almost $1,000 into it with, fixing it up, new tires, new rims, everything else, but still. But the pedals are the adjuster's stripped, so I can't adjust them, so they're too tight, and that was my problem. I was going up a hill, I lost momentum, went to pop out, and because it was too tight, my foot didn't pop out quick enough. So I ended up falling over, and when I did, I hit hard enough that I actually bent the seat.
Oh, wow.
So I had to get a new helmet because I dented the helmet. I hit hard, but I also hit hard enough, like I said, to bend the back brake.
That sucks.
Yeah, so that's what killed me on that one. And like I said, the year before, it was because I wasn't used to the bike. So it's been little errors like that you learn from, hopefully. So, so the next time I have the bike worked on, I'm either going to have the see if they can fix the adjusters, because I really like the pedals. That's my problem. They're really nice Shimano pedals that I can flip over and use both ways. So I really like them. So I'm either going to try and get them fixed or replaced. But and that's it. It's your gear. You're only as good as your gear. If you don't have the good gear and you don't know how to use your gear and you don't take care of it, you're going to have problems.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, training for Ultraman, the distance in the water is 10 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
Far it is on the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you're at the shore of the lake and you look in the distance, how far 10 kilometers is, and it looks a little further when your face is in the water.
No, when they was it an out and back on the 10K, or was it just you went?
Yeah, at Ultraman Canada and the World Championships, it was point A to point B.
Oh.
Yeah. And
So
then go ahead.
I was gonna say, then you have the bike set up at the end of the swim,
Correct.
so you can just swim right to the bike. Okay.
Yeah. You get out of the water, your crew, having minimum 2 crew is mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
So you're with one of your crew is in the water in a kayak alongside you, making sure you're safe, of course, and handing off nutrition when you need it.
Yeah, because I and I never thought about that, because like on the Ironmans and stuff, it's there's a lot of people in the water, so they have kayaks, they have everything else. I'm sure it's probably got the same rule where you can grab the kayak, you just can't go forward with it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I could see that. I mean, that would be interesting with only 40 people. Then you'd have to have your own crew, because I mean, it sounds like it's a very minimalistic race. Which
yes, there's not very many nutty people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the nutty people, they all get along. You
Okay.
become friends with everybody during the race, and at the end of it, you're best friends. You stay in contact. All the people, I'd say 90% of the people that I met, I'm still friends with and interact with them.
Wow. See, that just sounds, it sounds like something to work to. I mean, I know it's one of those where I get these crazy ideas, like I want to go do that, which I do, but I know I need to work to that one. And I mean, I think it's good too that they make it so you have to qualify.
Yeah.
Because there's people like me who just randomly like, that sounds amazing. And then I sign up for it. And then I'm like, yeah, I bit off more than I can chew, but I'm still going to go for it.
Yeah.
Which, if you knew me, that's pretty much my entire, like when I started doing Spartan races, the very first race I ever did was a beast. So I didn't even, I'm like, yeah, let's go for the biggest and worst. Let's go for it. So I mean, that's just my personality. So you're telling me about these ultra, I'm like, this sounds amazing. But there's been a couple other ones that I've looked into that I've seen where you've had to qualify, because they have a limited amount of people and they also want to make sure you can do it. Because one of the ones I've looked at too, just because it's not the great distance, it's just, it sounds fun, is the Alcatraz.
Yeah.
I want to do Escape from Alcatraz.
That's quite the ordeal in the water. I understand, from what I understand, it's quite a current. And there's people that want to do that race, and they have a lottery for it.
Yeah. You have to qualify, and then there's a lottery, because I think that one's capped at about 200.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think, it's a $700 race, but
yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow. That one.
It is, and it's not a great distance. It's only, I was trying to think, I think the swim is only a little over a mile, and then I think the bike and the run is maybe about the equivalent of somewhere between a sprint and an Olympic. So it's just like the great idea of swimming, that they've told us for years is an impossible swim, but I've actually done some research. It's not that hard of a swim from Alcatraz to the
marketing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, I do another podcast. It's like conspiracy theory stuff, and I did one on Alcatraz on the escapes, and I'm doing the research. I'm like, there's like 4. They kept saying shark attacks. They've like 4 sharks have been seen in that bay in the last like 20 years. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah, so, you're putting the scare in people.
Yep. And that's, I mean, I think that was the hardest part for me at first, because like I said, I'm not a good swimmer. I've never been a swimmer, and it was when I started to do it, because I kept telling myself I'm never going to do a triathlon because I don't like swimming. But then after a while, you get that idea in your head, and you're like, well, this is why I should do it. Because I don't like swimming. So it gives that whole new challenge, and it's quite interesting. I mean, like you said, you've been doing it for 18 years. So what got you into it? Was it one of those things that you just, because I know you said you're 51, so 18, you would have been your 30s when you went for it.
Yeah. Well, growing up, I did lots of running. I did a 10K Terry Fox run in 1981 when the year my mom passed away, and I really enjoyed running, and I continued to do so. And then I jumped up to half marathon, then marathon, and then I started doing ultra marathons, distances beyond marathon distance,
Mhm.
and really enjoyed them. And then I started seeing more and more of triathlons for whatever reason, and I first made the decision when Simon Whitfield won the gold in Australia. And I said,
Nice.
I'm gonna do this. I'm going to do a triathlon. I'm get a bike and let's go do this. And then I started doing different distances. And as I said, the 70.3, 140.6 distances, I still was ready to go some more.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I was blazing fast. I had 12:27 Ironman. Like, that's not fast at all. It's just doing it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So then that was in 2008. And then I just started doing longer races and I really enjoyed them.
Yeah. And see, for me, I'm one of those ones. I'm the same as you. I just go for it. If I finish, I finish. That's the goal. If I end up getting, some kind of whatever, on top of that, great. But for me, it's like just finishing the race is my goal. I've been completely out of shape because, I'll be 45 like now. This week is my birthday. But it's one of those, like, I started later. Like my first marathon I did, what, it's been 5 years ago. Yeah, 5 years ago, because I did it 6 days before my 40th birthday. Because I told myself I did a half marathon like right around my 30th. And then I'm like, I'm gonna do a marathon before my 40th. And then injury after injury after injury. And then right before my 40th, I was just about 280. And I'm like, I'm doing it anyway. So
Oh,
it
wow.
took me like 9.5 hours. It was brutal and
Wow.
dumb. But I came back and I did the same one last year in 5:40. So
Well,
yeah.
the goal is to see two lines, start line, finish line.
Yep.
What happens in between is irrelevant.
Yes, it is. And that's kind of one of those things for me. I know I'm not, because it's just not my goal. My goal isn't to be first place. My goal is to finish it, to push myself farther, to be better than I was yesterday. And that's,
Absolutely.
always been my thing. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
hearing those sounds, what other, are you going to be doing more endurance ones, or what's the other ones you got on your mind? I know the Ultraman, sounds like an amazing one that I'd love to do, but someday.
Yeah. I did in 2021, I did a double anvil. I did it on my own because the race in Oregon, we weren't able to, the borders were closed, so you couldn't cross the border to race.
Hmm.
I had trained up to that point and I was ready to race and still couldn't cross. So I decided to put a crew together and do it on my own.
Wow.
So did the swim at a local lake, did the bike up and down the island here, and did the run around the parking lot of a shopping mall. Because by that time it was at night and there's no traffic, no vehicle traffic to worry about, and the parking lot was lit.
Yeah, that
So,
makes sense.
yeah. So I did it in 35 hours, 49 minutes.
Wow. And which one's that? That's the anvil was the
Double.
anvil.
Yeah, and that's a 7.6 kilometer swim, 360 kilometer bike, 84.4 kilometer run. So I did that and I was quite pleased with it. And then this past June, I went to the race that I intended to go to the year prior.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my first DNF. The weather was an atmospheric river, they call it. The river rose 15 feet. It rained for 15 hours. I was fit and ready to race knowing I was gonna finish, but what I wasn't ready for was the rain. So I didn't have the proper equipment.
Yeah.
So I pulled the plug at 275 kilometers into the bike.
And that the rain can get you. Weather is one of those ones that's the hardest thing to be ready for. I know I've had a couple races where heat is usually, I mean, living in Washington, I'm used to the rain, so I have so much different things. But even then, for that distance, for what you're talking about, I mean, you're looking at, your feet are wet for so long. You're going to start looking at trench foot. You're going to start looking at other issues that people haven't even thought about, because I teach like first aid and stuff, so I know all the things that can happen from being wet for so long, the hypothermia, and
Yeah,
like I said, trench foot, just having your feet in wet socks. Like anytime I know it's going to be raining and my feet are going to get wet, like even doing a Spartan Ultra, I'll make sure I have another pair of socks
yeah,
and shoes so I can get my feet dry and everything else, so I don't get any of that. So I can imagine if it's 15 hours in the river, that much rain, it would be
it
a
was
tough one.
it was tough. Yes, the rain was tough, but it also the darkness.
Mhm.
It riding through the night, and it was tough. Everybody had to deal with it. The difference was I was under equipped.
Mhm.
And that was disappointing to me, because when I was talking with the race director, Craig Braun, he was talking with me, and I was letting him know where my head's at, what I'm feeling, and he's trying to dissuade me from pulling the plug. And he's watching me walk, and he goes, "Your legs are fine." I go, "Yeah, they are. I'm fine. It's just I can't stop shaking." I later found out I did have hypothermia. So, and but it's an incredible race. I look forward going back to that race to finish my business there.
And I mean, that's what's amazing. I mean, that's what shows that what type of athlete you are, is like, it's not like, oh, I got beat, it's over. It's like, okay, I know what happened. I know I got hypothermic. I know I was under equipped. Now it's like, how do I make sure that that doesn't happen next time?
Yes.
And that's the difference between a lot of athletes and others. The people who get these done is because, a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I tried. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like me with the Ironman. I've tried twice now to do 70.3 and I haven't done it. And now I'm like, okay, well, I'm trying to decide which one I want to do next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I might go for Eugene,
Yeah.
just because I think I need to get over that mental part, because I've DNF'd in that same lake twice now.
Yeah.
So I think I need to go for another one just to get it under my belt, say I've done one, now I can go back to that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Wipe the plate clean.
Mhm.
That's what, like, this race was in June, and every workout since, I've thought about it. It's been on my mind. I want to erase that 3 letters after my name, and the goal is to get back there and to, as I said, finish my business there, because it's as tough as a course that is. I know I'm tougher. I know I'll get to the finish line because I know what's there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like, get an idea how tough the course is. When you're riding that long, you build a bond with different racers. You ride alongside them.
Yep.
Yes, you're cheering them, but you're each other's cheering section along the way.
Mhm.
And I've talked with people that have done triple anvils, 3 times the distance of the iron distance, quintuple 5 times. And that course in Oregon with the double anvil, they said that it was a triple anvil effort on a double anvil course. And I found out, there's a lot of things that stay in my head. That was one of them. Another one was, it's toughest double anvil course in the States. And then another one, a couple of guys had finished quintuples, and they said that it's as crazy as this sounds. They said that the quintuples they did was easier than this double anvil.
Wow.
Yeah. So
It's a tough one.
yes, but the cycle, the ride is got 14,500 feet of elevation gain, almost half of Everest.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the run, just to beat your legs up a little more, the run's got 4,000 feet of elevation gain. Yeah. So it's a course, but it's a beautiful course.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad that I went to it. I had help getting to these races. These types of races, entry fee is quite costly. And I was grateful enough and lucky enough to get help, get support. These people that help me out, they want to stay anonymous, and I'm okay with that. But I was grateful to get help, and I definitely want to go back to the race and acknowledge that they helped me, which I did thank them. But I want to repay them by showing them that I'm not a bum that, that shows up and kills himself and gets a DNF. So
yeah, and it's always tough. I mean, that is the hardest part sometimes, is the help. I mean, some people don't realize sometimes how much, even just someone knowing they're in your corner or they're going to be there to help you, how much that changes everything. And I think
yes,
that's been, the hardest part for me a lot of times is, some people know this, some don't. When I was growing up, I was the smart kid in my family. I was the smart kid. My brother was the athlete. So when it came to athletics, nothing was ever expected of me. So whenever I did athletics, like, nobody paid attention. So it was always tough growing up, where a lot of people like, why didn't you do a whole, I'm like, because nobody paid attention. I was supposed to be the smart one. I wasn't supposed to be doing athletics, you
yeah,
know. So now that I'm older and when I'm doing them, I think that's why I like having those groups of friends that are right there with you. And I love the team atmosphere, because I
yeah,
love building each other up and just going for it. When you have those people in your corner, it changes everything.
absolutely it does. Training for Ultraman in Hawaii and Ultraman Canada and Penticton, excuse me. You learn who's in your corner. You learn who's in your circle, and they've always been there, but they just get magnified when they show their support of you.
Yeah.
And family is a huge part of it. Triathlon has a big divorce rate.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because if you're out riding for 4, 5, 6 hours, what's your partner doing? And then you add kids to it. Some couples, they feel resented, and it can become a problem. And there's ways of combating that.
There is.
Give and take. Get up earlier, go to bed later. Do things that partner likes to do.
There's a lot of compromise in that, because that's one thing for me. I've been married 21 years now. And that's one thing, for us, when I started doing like OCRs and stuff, where some of the deals we made, and a lot of people are surprised. Like, if I go my wife always travels with me when I go to races.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone always wonders why I pick the races I do. And I'm like, because me and my wife have a deal, because she doesn't race. She doesn't do this kind of stuff. She's like, you're an idiot. Have fun. But our deal is she gets a vacation.
Yeah.
So wherever we go, that's why most of the race I do, Hawaii, Texas, Florida, stuff like that, where I go to races, California, warm places where she can have a vacation.
Yeah.
And I get to go race, and that's kind of the things that we do. And then when I go train, usually it's, I'll make sure it's ahead of time. I try not to do, if I get off early, I'll go to the gym before she gets home from work. Or, Saturdays or Sundays, I have my suffer buddies, as I call them, suffer brothers, who I go suffer with, and we do crazy exercises. That's her time, time to do stuff. So we spend enough time during the week together, and we make sure we plan around each other's schedules to do that. And I could see with how much especially when you start getting into the ultra marathons and stuff like that, and the ultramans and everything like that, where that could become, that's a lot of training time. Where
Yeah.
I've done a couple with a buddy where we'll go for bike rides for 40, 50 miles. We're gone for, 3 or 4 hours, depending on where we start from, because we have to drive there, do everything. And, so I could definitely see how the divorce rate plus the cost.
Yes.
Like every time I take the bike to the shop and I come back with I have a credit card that I have to hide from her so she can't see what I'm spending on it. So,
Yes. I've done this sport a while. Along the way, I've developed friendships, bonds, companies. I've become ambassadors, being sponsored by them, and that definitely helps out a lot. Just the nutrition alone, the supplements, that would be a feat to cover in itself. But I'm very grateful to have the help of them, and I'm hope I'm doing my end and promoting them.
yeah. And that's always a huge help. Like I said, it's always good to have people in your corner when you can get people to sponsor you. I haven't got good enough to get sponsors occasionally. I mean, I'm an ambassador for like Noon and Spartan and stuff like that. But like I said, I'm getting more into the Ironmans and the triathlons, and I want to be able to, really do that stuff. And it's like I said, the hardest part is sometimes the money. I mean, just in my bike alone, if I hadn't, like I said, I got lucky that my father-in-law found a specialized delay that fits me
Yeah.
for $10.
Yeah.
And when he first brought it home, I'm like, that's a very expensive bike. And he's like, oh, I paid $10 for it. Do you want it? And I'm like, yeah.
Score.
And like I
Yeah.
said, I put new tires on it, everything like that. The only thing is I would like eventually to, because it's a road bike, it's not a tri bike. And someday I would like to step up, which a lot of people are like, what's the difference? I'm like, about $5,000. But it's one of those things, like if you would have told me even 3 years ago that I was going to be doing triathlons and that I would be able to call myself a triathlete, I would have been like, you're out your mind. I don't swim. I don't do that. And like I said, that was the hardest. That's the one I made sure that I finally got a coach on. I'm like, someone needs to show me how to do this, because my entire life I grew up swimming in rivers.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was like being at the old water hole. You jump in the water, you swim back to the thing to go jump off the jump back in the water. There was none of this, like just swim and go as a mode of transportation.
Correct.
And like I said, if you're not doing it just right, you're going to wear your body down and you get tired so quick. And that's what I noticed. I couldn't, my body was wrecked. And by the time I came out of those first couple ones, I couldn't breathe because, I'd pushed so hard. My body was wrecked. This last Ironman, I was so happy with myself because I came out of the water. I still wasn't great time. I was about 50 minutes, for 1.2 miles, which is under the time limit. So that's all I cared about.
Yeah.
But it felt a lot better than the other ones. Like the first year, I don't know if I made it in time because I lost my timing chip in the water.
Okay.
So I came in before the cutoff. I know that, but I don't know if I finished in the hour, according to my watch. And I started it like right before we started. I was at like an hour and 12, like 30, which I think you have an hour and 10 to do it.
Yeah.
So it was, right there. So depending on when I started and shut off my watch, but, and that's, I think the hardest part is getting used to, how to make all that work.
Well, the secret is not to fight the water.
Mhm.
Relax in the water.
And that's the hardest part for me. The second I hit the water, like everyone always laughs when there's Spartan races. The obstacle I hate the most and have the hardest time on is the dunk wall. They're like, all you have to do is dunk under the wall in the water. And I'm like, yeah, I'm out. Can't do it.
Well, sorry to laugh, but I understand that. I know exactly that feeling. I've seen people have that struggle, and as simple as it sounds, it's a very real fear.
Mhm. And that's one of the reasons, like when all of a sudden a couple of my friends like, you're gonna go do a triathlon? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go for it, And I think that's one of those things. And I think it's just from doing OCRs and meeting people, like you and some of the other people I meet doing this. for me, it's changed throughout the years. It was like, if I had something I was afraid of, put that way over there, keep it as far away from me as possible.
Yeah.
And now that I'm like getting older and doing some other things, I'm like, hey, I'm afraid of that. I need to go do it. And everyone's like, well, why? And I'm like, because it scares me.
Yeah.
And if it scares me, I need to go make it not scare me. And the only way I'm going to make it not scare me is I need to go confront it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's not the end of the world if you don't succeed. Just try.
Yeah.
That's
And
what
that's it. You know,
Yes.
try. Oh, go ahead.
And I just tell people that, what are you afraid of? Is somebody going to get you if you don't do it, if you don't succeed? No, just try.
Try, and then if you don't, learn from it. It's like,
Yeah.
you're talking about the DNF in Oregon. It was never like, well, I DNF did happen. You're more like, okay, this happened. This is why it happened. And it was one of those things when I DNF'd the Ironman, it was one of those, because I know on Facebook, all my friends are following me. They're like, oh, what's happening? So I knew the second that I didn't continue after the bike that everyone was going to be. So I just posted, I said, hey, just so everyone knows, I'm okay, but my
Mhm.
day's over,
Yeah.
and I don't want to talk about it right now,
Mhm.
because I wanted those 2 or 3 days. It was actually probably about a week to process.
Absolutely. Yeah. You just want to come down from it,
Mhm.
and want to have a clear head to understand what happened to you, why it happened, what can you do to fix it.
Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of people don't get. And I think people who've never DNF'd don't understand that, where it's like, I'm not wallowing in like self-pity in a corner.
Mhm.
I'm sitting over here thinking, okay, what happened? Like you said, what happened? Why did it happen? What do I need to do? What steps do I need to take to make sure this doesn't happen again? And I get everyone always makes fun of me because I still have, because when you do the Ironman, 70.3s, you get the dry bag. So, and I still have my 2 dry bags from it, and everyone always cracks out. Well, they don't crack up. I think it's funny. They don't. I call them my failure bags. And everyone's like, that's horrible. And I'm like, no, it's, I don't look at it as a negative, honestly. And I know a lot of people do. When you use that word, it's an automatic negative. And to me, it's like, it's not a negative in my brain. To me, saying it's a failure bag reminds me that, hey, remember, this happened, and this is what we need to do to make sure it doesn't happen again. If I forget it, it's like you hear all the time, if you forget the past, it's doomed to happen again. So those
Bingo.
failure bags are my reminders of what happened last time and what I need to do to fix it.
Yes, absolutely. People need some kind of fuel to fuel their fire, and that to me is your fuel.
Yeah. And that's one of those things I think a lot of people have. It's like I've had twice in my life now where I've lost a bunch of weight. And the first time it cracked me up at the office that I had a picture of me at my biggest that sat on my desk.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, why don't you replace that? And I'm like, because that's my reminder. That's my fuel to remind me every time when I'm like, nope, I don't think I'm gonna go to the gym today. And I see that picture on my desk and I'm like, nope, I need to go to the gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we all have our different motivations and different, things that help us. And those for me is to remind not just of my wins, but remind me of my failure. So I know what I need to do to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah. In order to get to where you want to go, you got to know where you come from.
Exactly. So we mentioned a couple of other races. What other races do you have? I know I saw one that I like the email you sent, the 666.
Yeah, it's something that going on a long ride. Yes, you're paying attention to the road, you're paying attention to your surroundings, but your mind can go.
Yep. It goes all over the place.
Yes. And I was thinking, okay, if I'm not able to do certain races, what am I going to do as a goal race, as an incentive? And I come up with this 666, 6 hours of biking, 6 hours of swimming, 6 hours of biking, 6 hours of running. And measure the distances of each, of course, and then see what I come up with. 6 hours of biking and running, to me, that's, at the risk of sounding arrogant, that's a training day.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never swam 6 hours. The furthest I've swam was 4 hours, 45 minutes, and that was in Hawaii for 10K. So, that's something I got on my mind. Like I like doing charity work. There's a charity that I enjoy working with. I've raised money for them a few different times, and I building a bond with them, and I like that. It's kids sport. Kids that aren't able to participate in sports due to financial reasons, not being able to get the equipment, not being able to pay the registration, that kind of thing. This helps them try a sport. If they like it, they can continue and hopefully get some more help along the way. And the goal is to get the kids moving and being active, right?
Yes.
As opposed to staring at a device, sitting on the couch, playing a video game virtually, like get out and do it.
Yeah.
So that I like to do. So I enjoy it. I've seen the results of it. Kids, I've talked with little kids, like young kids, 6, 7, 8 years old, and they look up to me and wow, nice bike, and that kind of thing. And I just let them know you can do it too. There's nothing stopping you if you give it a chance and give it a try. You can do it.
Yeah, and that's amazing. It's so good to give back to the next generation. I think that's one of the things. Like for me, I got lucky. My youngest, he did 3 years in a row. He did the Spartan trifecta with me, where he ran all 3 distances in Spartan. Unfortunately, during COVID, he kind of lost all of that. He doesn't want to do any of that anymore. But I mean, he's also 20 now, and a 20-year-old. So, but but it's also good to see. I mean, I always made sure of, no matter how broke we were when we were younger, if the kids wanted to play sports, we found a way, because we wanted them to be able to. And I mean, if you do that, the charity thing, the next time you do it, let me know and Don know, and we will help support you on that every way, because we both, kids need sports. They need that opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we will help you any way we can.
That's awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah, because it's like I said, kids need sports. It's one of those that's just I'll never. I coached baseball for years. I have a good buddy that still coaches baseball for his kids. I love I love helping kids get through it and learning and seeing that when they get a sport and they figure out how to do it, and getting kids away from the devices and everything else is, it needs to happen more.
Absolutely. Yes. Like growing up, I used to, my hockey coach, I played hockey up till I was 17. And one of my coaches, he taught power skating as well. And he said, Tim, come on out, show these kids what you can do. Show them your skating abilities. And I go out there and skate with them, and they're just in awe. They're little guys looking up to you, and brings a smile to my face, and just seeing how they looking at me. And I enjoyed that. Doing skating drills with them. I remember one little guy, he was skating, he come up to the boards, and he tried stopping, but he was leaning too far forward and just smoked the boards and got up crying. And got up crying, and he's standing there, and I saw it all happen. I went over to him and I said, hey Tommy, that was a good crash. I bet if you hurt right now. He says, yeah. I said, I bet you if you skate to the other boards and back real fast, you'll leave the pain behind. Give it a try. So off he went. He come back, and I said, well, did you do it? You leave the pain behind? He goes, yeah, I sure did. And he's just huffing and puffing, but he's just happy as can be. And
it is amazing. It's a lot of times with kids where they don't want to, but once you get them out there, sometimes they end up really enjoying it. And that was kind of all of our kids. I never forced them to play specific sports, but I'm like, you need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do a sport. For quite a few years, my daughter was a huge baseball player. She loved baseball. It was so funny. The biggest girly girl you ever met. But if you put catcher's gear on her, she was wallowing in the dirt. She loved to be the catcher.
Awesome. That's awesome.
my youngest, he kind of bounced around from different sports and never really found one that he really enjoyed, but because he's not really coordinated,
Yeah.
which, some of us aren't. I'm not hugely coordinated on a lot of things, but he enjoyed it and he had fun. So, and that's kind of one of those things. It's like, I think too many parents force their kids to play the sports they played.
Yeah.
I wish we'd had hockey up here. We didn't have hockey when I was a kid. My oldest, he played hockey for a season, which he really enjoyed it. And I don't know why his mom didn't have him keep doing it. I was willing to pay for it, but it was, one of those things. But I love seeing kids play sports, and
Mhm.
whatever sport they want to play, I'm like, I will, for my kids, I will help you. I mean, whatever sport you want to play, because like when my one son played soccer, I've never played. I don't know how to play soccer. It was just a sport. I never go run around for 90 minutes and kick a ball. No.
Yeah. Well, growing up, I got an older brother and a younger sister. As I said, my mom passed away when I was 9 in 1981, but my dad had us in sports. My brother played hockey, I played hockey, my sister swam, and I remember a few times there were instances where my dad would say, "Okay, when you're done your game, come out. Don't have a shower. We need to go. We need to go pick up your brother, take him to this game. We need to go get your sister to the pool." So somehow we all got it done, and everybody got to where they needed to be. And I thank my dad because of getting us in sports, keeping us active.
And that's awesome. See, for me, it was one of those, and it's funny. It's you kind of met Don through email, and Don's the one. Some people know, some don't. Me and Don have been friends since preschool. We met in preschool.
Oh
So
wow.
when it came to sports, my dad is older, and I'm the youngest of 6. So my brother was, like I said, was the athlete. I was the smart kid. So when it came to sports, I learned most of it from Don's dad.
Okay.
So Don's dad's the one who taught me how to bowl, taught me how to play baseball, taught me all of that. So it's kind of funny where, some people like don't realize that most of like my sports stuff actually was Don's parents and not mine. So
Okay.
it
Oh
was,
wow.
I don't think my parents have ever seen me play a sport
Holy cow.
in my entire life,
Yeah.
because like I said, I was the smart kid, which I don't know why I'm not that smart, but, but I mean,
I
I've met
in
my
school,
brothers and sisters. It's not a high bar. So
in school I wasn't the smart kid. I was the athletic one. And okay, sport, whatever it is, let's go. And
yeah.
that's what I track, lacrosse, hockey, baseball, track and field. I enjoyed it all, and volleyball. So I was
Yeah.
always doing something, and I enjoyed it. Still do.
And see, for me, I was one of those ones. I may not have been playing sports all the time, but I was always outside. I was
Yeah.
outside doing stuff, riding my bike. I mean, I always had, back then the good mountain bikes and dirt bikes were the mongooses. I always had a mongoose, and I was always, freaking mountain bike or, BMX, riding my bike everywhere, so it was a different time. I mean, I had an Atari,
Yeah.
you know. And then I think I had the Nintendo. So by the time Super Nintendo came out, I think I was in my teens and I was over it. I'm like, yeah, video games, whatever. I'd gotten girls. I'm like, I don't, yeah, I got
Yeah.
better things to do than video games.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but nowadays it's so different because now it's, handhelds, phones, everything else, and trying to get kids out there to do stuff. And it's a completely different world now. But
Yeah.
I think I like the 666. I might have to try that
Well,
someday.
it's something I've been kicking around for a while, and excuse me, and uh it's a challenge to me. And then as I was thinking about it, and then I started thinking different variations of it: 3 hour swim, 9 hour ride, 9 hour run. Like various distances or various times. And the longer you go, of course, you're going to run into darkness.
Hmm.
And that's my only obstacle right now. I'm okay with me being in the dark. My wife isn't okay with me being in the dark.
It's It's where my wife has an issue too sometimes, but I've gone through and I have a lot of, because I do a lot of weird, there's an event that I do every year called the Sisu, and it's out here in Washington in the Pacific Northwest. Sisu 24-hour race starts Saturday morning at 7 a.m. and you run until Sunday morning at 7 a.m. and see how many miles you can get.
Yeah.
And you're running loops on the mountain trails. So I have a whole like nighttime setup to be able to run. But then the difference is then I'm out in the trails with other runners. It's all going on. But we're in the situation where you're talking about, it might just be you running laps around your neighborhood, and cars aren't always paying attention, other issues that you run into. And I mean, I could get the idea of the darkness.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You mentioned that 24-hour run. I've done some of those runs where it's on a 400-meter standard school track.
Mhm.
You run laps and it's converted into miles, and that determines your placing.
Yeah, I did a couple of years ago, and I think I might change it to kilometers and not tell anyone, but I started running my age.
Yeah.
Miles. So this year it should be 45 miles, and I turned, like I said, my 45th birthday's this week. So, and I'm not sure my legs are up for that right now, but I might do it. Last year, I did it on the treadmill. I did 44 miles on the treadmill. I took my iPad, set it down on the on the treadmill, put on the show I wanted to watch, made sure it was charged up, and just sat there and like binge watched my favorite show for, God, I think it was like 8 hours.
Yeah.
Just straight running on the treadmill for 44 miles.
Well, it's funny about you're talking about treadmills. Once upon a time, my wife wanted a treadmill. And I said, okay, fine. As long as you put it to use, that it doesn't become an expensive coat rack, I've got no problem. But now I thoroughly enjoy the treadmill. I've done some people would call them crazy things. I've run 50 miles on a treadmill, 85 kilometers, 100 kilometers a few times. And those were charity events that I put on and raise money for different charities. And so, yeah, 100 kilometers, 11 hours, 6 minutes, I think it was. So.
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm probably going to do the 45 miles. I just haven't decided. The year before I did it we did it as like my birthday party. And I literally just ran, and I did the same. I went to a track by my house. That was a 1/4 mile track, and just ran loops all day long. And I had like my friends would show up because it was, like I said, my birthday party basically. So I was just running laps, and my friends would show up, run a few laps with me. We'd talk, maybe stop for a minute and have it, a quick, some nutrition to keep me moving. I switched shoes every like 15 miles, and stuff like that. And just all day long, I just kept running laps around the track to get to get 44 miles. Because I did do for a long time, I did 100 miles a month was my goal for running. The last 2 months, a lot of people, I may not notice this, but I didn't make it the last 2 months because I just 2 years of pushing like I have, my body was wrecked. Coming out of this race season, after I hit so hard at the Ironman, I've had an issue with my back and my shoulder, and I just needed. I'm like, I need this break. I had gone from May 2020 until, what was it? I stopped. October was the first month. So October, November, the first 2 months, I haven't hit 100 miles since May of 2020, and every month. And I'm just like, I'm 45 years old. My body just needs that. I need this rest for like 2 months. I mean, I haven't stopped running. I think I hit 60 miles last month, and I think I'm going to hit about 55, 60 this month. So I still ran. I just didn't do 100. So I just needed that, take a break. So, and that's kind of been but then like Saturday, I went with a buddy. We ran on the treadmill I did a mile on the treadmill, did an hour like leg workout, and then did a spin class. So, I mean, I still have been doing stuff, but it's just kind of taking a break, trying to, to get it down. Cause I mean, I'm getting a little older, but I need to, and I think what it is too is like you were saying, I need to focus on the training. What's my goal? I've had a lot of talks with one of my coaches, Megan, and I need a goal for next year, and my goal is the Ironman. So I need to look at the Ironman, and I think this year I was still doing I still did a Spartan, 3 trifectas in Spartan, 2 back-to-back trifecta weekends with Spartan, and then multiple triathlons, and it's like I need to focus on the Ironman and just get that,
Yeah.
I think that's my thing. I focus on too much.
You
The ADHD.
you learn these things along the way.
You do.
What's important? What's the focus? How do I get there? Who's supporting me?
Yes. Yeah. And that's one thing, that's really, I'm lucky. I have a really good, like you were talking about, I have a good support team, between, Dawn, who, we do the podcast together, supporting me and supporting each other. My good friend, Brian, we do a lot together. And then I have multiple friends that are coaches that work with me to help, keep me in line to do things where I'm not just like, oh yeah, this sounds great. Cause like I said, I'm totally ADHD where something sounds amazing to me. And I'm like, oh, let's go do this. Like with the first time I ran my age, I'm like, oh, sure. Why not? Let's try this. I've never ran more than a marathon. So yeah, let's run my age. Why not?
Well, I kind of get that. You mentioning that, I started thinking about the first time I ran 50 miles. The previous distance I ran was a half marathon. So when I found out about this 50-mile run around Cowichan Lake, I thought my 17-year-old brain was, yeah, I like running. I've ran a half marathon. That's only what, 30, 37 more miles?
Yeah, why not?
How hard could it be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how my brain works. Cause before that summer I did do 30 or 43 before I did that. But at mile 43, it was actually really about mile 42, my hip like just gave up. I don't know if I don't know if it dislocated. It might have because it hurt bad. But all of a sudden, everything in my hip was cramped up. I couldn't move it. It was stuck, and I had to limp back like the mile back to my house. And I'm like, okay, because I was going for 50, and I'm like, done. Don't know what that is, but we're done. So
Yeah.
I've done a couple times with that, but then I trained harder, and then I think when I ended up doing it finally, I was at like 50 pounds smaller because I went from almost 300 to I was down to 180 at one point.
Oh, wow.
So I
Holy-
dropped a bunch. I'm about 230 right now, but
Okay. Nice.
it's
Journey.
it's a journey. It is. But when I hit 180, it was like one of those, like my goal was to get under 200, and then I hit 180, and I'm like, even my boss is like, "Are you sick?" I'm like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
this is healthy. And then I'm looking in the
Yeah.
mirror, going, "Okay, no, I get it now. I know why he's asking."
Yeah. Yeah. People wonder if you're in treatment or not.
Is there anything you want to tell the listeners in closing?
Don't be scared to try. Just try.
Mhm.
If you don't succeed, what's the harm in it? You might enjoy it. You might find a focus.
No.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's not. And that is one of the biggest things. Just try, go for it. If you don't succeed, you did something new. You looked at your fears, just do it.
I want to give a shout out.
Okay.
Craig Braun, Terry Smith, rest of the crew at Mammoth Endurance. They are, I think they're incredible. I've only met them the one time, but as I said, when you go to these races, you instantly become family. You meet them, you enjoy their company, you have the same mindset as you, and it's a bond.
Mhm.
It's you do these races and you want to go back, whether you finish the race or not, or even if you just go to watch, or if you're a crew, you want to go there to see these people again. And that's what I like.
Yeah. And those are the best ones. Like I said, I mentioned the Sisu race, and that's how I feel in the Sisu. The very first time I did it, we're competing against each other, but we were the best friends. We'd go hike together, we'd run the race together, talk to each other, help each other. I told everyone like, hey, my cooler's over there. If you need something, go ahead. It's a community cooler at this point because I'm not going to use it all. So, and that's what's great about it. And especially endurance. I found that with endurance people, it's everyone's there to help each other.
Yes. I got to say this too. You say that everybody's to help each other. When I was in Hawaii racing Ultraman World Championships, it was near the end of day 2. I was about 15 kilometers from the end. I got a flat tire, flat front. My crew was having a hard time getting my tire back on with the tube in, and the team from Honduras, their racer passed me, and their crew stopped. Everything okay? Are you all right? I said, no, we're having a hard time getting my wheel on. They took my wheel, come back with one of his wheels, and here, put it on your bike, finish your day. Not knowing these people, I don't even know their name. All I knew was that it was Team Honduras. Okay. Think about this for a sec. You don't know who I am, but here's a $2,000 wheel. Put it on your bike, finish your day.
Yeah.
So I finished my day, and of course I'm looking for them to return the wheel. So I found them, returned the wheel, thanked them graciously, and they returned my wheel, changed, ready to ride.
Wow. And that's what's amazing on those teams.
Yeah, somebody you're racing, but they're also your teammate. Help out.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been great talking to you, and I'm sure we will talk again.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.